Hello, everybody. This is Artie Astor from Artie Astor Music, doing another episode of B Sharp and C. Today, I'm going to change it up a bit and feature a movie that I think has been underrated, has gone under the radar. A lot of people who I ask, have you seen this movie? They're like, oh no. But look at the cast of this movie: Matthew McConaughey, Bill Paxton, Harvey Keitel, John Bon Jovi. And then you have other stars: Thomas Kretschmann, Jake Weber. Jake Weber was in Hell on Wheels. You wouldn't recognize him. He looked so different in Hell on Wheels. And there are other great actors in there. Jack Noseworthy is in this movie as a German-speaking American seaman. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at a few scenes from the movie U-571, and I will explain why I think this is one of the most underrated movies of all time. And I have one word: dialogue. Dialogue. So for this episode of B Sharp and C, we will feature the movie U-571. Okay, now I'm going to go through this semi-fast. I don't want this video to be too long because I want to kind of go in sequence and show some scenes from the movie that help me explain why the movie is so good. Matthew McConaughey is an XO on a submarine in the Navy, and he wants to be captain. He thought he was going to get recommended for captain. And Bill Paxton, who is the captain, has that uncomfortable conversation with Matthew McConaughey about him not getting recommended to have his own boat. And this is how the movie kind of starts off. Let's watch. We're not going to watch the whole scene, but in the beginning of the movie, Matthew McConaughey was expecting to be recommended to take on his own ship, to be a submarine captain. And Bill Paxton's character said, "You're not ready." Didn't explain why, but said, "You're not ready." And the movie kind of picks up from this moment on, because these gentlemen coming in right now are basically saying to them, hey, you've got a mission. You've got a mission. Now, things kind of, this is an action movie with some of the best dialogue you will ever see in your life. Now, we're going to jump ahead to another scene in the movie where things are beginning to formulate, okay? Things are beginning to come into place as to what it is they're going to be asked to do. So they ask for another seaman who speaks German to come down and speak to some of the other people who are involved, some of the other captains, because there is a plan forming. And this is where the movie really takes off. Okay, here we have a scene where Matthew McConaughey's character is asked to grab a seaman, and whose name is Wentz, right? Grab a seaman and bring him over to the captain for a private conversation. And I love how this movie develops. I just love how it develops. It's just like looking at an outline of perfect events and sequence, right? So now things are beginning to form. Their little party was interrupted. So now Matthew McConaughey's character, as an XO, is asked to bring this seaman Wentz to speak to the captain and some other high-ranking officials within the Navy, and it gets really interesting from this point on. This is why I like that scene. Number one, you don't know why an admiral is asking this seaman if he speaks German, and then essentially just after the conversation, all he says is, "He'll do." And then what I love after this scene is when Matthew McConaughey, and I forget the other actor's name, something Noseman, Jack Noseworthy, his character outside, once they get outside, he says to Matthew McConaughey, "Don't tell the other guys I speak German, they'll hate me." And what I think is really amazing about this scene, and one of the reasons why I think that the writing is good and the acting is good, and just the dialogue, everything about this movie is top notch. The thing that I think that is great about this scene is that Matthew McConaughey's character does not coddle Jack Noseworthy's character. He doesn't try to make his character feel good. He kind of just looks perplexed and says, "Yeah, sure thing, Wentz." he himself is probably having some type of weird inner thoughts. And the writing of this movie and the way that it was interpreted really do portray that emotion that Matthew McConaughey's character, even though he's the XO and needs to be, you know, what's the word? He needs to support his crew. He was having a moment there of inner reflection, and he didn't really know how to react to what Wentz or Jack Noseworthy's character was experiencing. He didn't know how to react to the whole episode that just took place, speaking with the Admiral. He was actually really confused himself, and it came across that way. We saw that. So now this next scene here is going to be where they are explaining the mission. They're explaining the mission to the captain, right? Bill Paxton and the XO. In this case, it's Matthew McConaughey. They're explaining exactly why they need someone to speak German, and they're explaining exactly what it is that's so urgent that this crew now needs to embark on. So let's watch this. Right. So now we have the mission. Okay. So Matthew McConaughey as an XO, his crew under Bill Paxton are getting called to pretend they are a German supply ship going to help another U-boat that has been disabled. And they're going to pretend to be the Germans coming with supplies to help them. And then they're going to go by force onto the U-boat and attack the people that are in it in order to take that boat over and to get the Enigma machine so that the Germans cannot communicate. And this is all still fairly in the beginning of the movie. The movie picks up fast. And what they do not sacrifice in an action movie where things happen, they do not sacrifice outstanding emotion. And like I said in the beginning, dialogue. The dialogue in this movie is probably, in my opinion anyways, one of the top 5 I've ever seen in a movie. And it's just because it's just perfectly placed at the right time, and the delivery, the interpretation of these characters is top notch. Bill Paxton does a tremendous job. Is that the right word? It is. He does an outstanding job. Take a look here. Bill Paxton is going to explain to Matthew McConaughey why he didn't recommend him to be a captain. The mission starts, okay? The mission starts. Things happen. I actually don't want to give any spoilers, but I will just say that Matthew McConaughey's character is now tasked with all of a sudden being captain. And for some reason, he's captain of the ship, but they're not in their ship. They're in the German U-boat. You'll have to watch the movie to find out how all that took place. But the chief petty officer, or the CPO, Harvey Keitel, is now talking to Matthew McConaughey about something that he said to the crew. Because after he was in the U-boat with the crew said to him, "What now? What do we do now?" And Matthew McConaughey just looked down and said, "I don't know." And then he goes to the back room to maybe reflect on what to do. And Harvey Keitel, the CPO of the ship, or the CPO of the crew, Harvey Keitel comes over and again lays on heavy the beautiful. Okay, so I just love that scene. It's a very short scene, but it really is a pivotal point in the movie. And it's interesting that Harvey Keitel's character there says dead as a depth charge. And depth charges is when you have a boat over the water, knowing that there's a submarine down below, and then they drop these bombs. They look like 55-gallon drums or whatever. They drop these bombs into the water, and then those bombs go off and explode at a certain depth. And they don't even necessarily need to touch the submarine because the shock wave from the explosion in and of itself can cause a lot of damage. And This movie, more than any other movie, really shows the anxiety, the fear, the outright terror that you feel when you're in a submarine and there's a boat above you dropping down depth charges and they're close to you, they're near you, and you can feel it inside the boat. I'm not going to show that scene. It is a scene. Movieclips.com does have the that scene ready to watch. I just wanted to I want to go through the story, the action, as I think something that you need to see on your own. But this next scene is kind of like a pivot point here, where they're pretending to be German in their submarine, and a German reconnaissance plane comes by and sees them. And there is an argument on board the German U-boat between Matthew McConaughey and one of the other seamen. The seaman wants to blow the plane out of the sky, and Matthew McConaughey is saying, well, if we shoot and miss, they're going to go back and they're going to come back with 25 more planes. We'll have the whole Navy after us. So this is a moment where Matthew McConaughey needs to really assert his authority. And from this moment on, you can really see in the movie that Matthew McConaughey's character is gaining that strength and that fearlessness to be a submarine captain. Stop there. I'm going to show no more scenes. I didn't want to give any spoilers. I did say some things that you don't discover until maybe you're about 45 minutes into the movie, like the fact that Matthew McConaughey all of a sudden has to actually get into the U-boat and be the captain of that U-boat, right? But you see, that's not necessarily a spoiler. You see that pretty fast within the first 45 minutes or so of the movie. But this movie has everything. It has everything. Kind of like the movie Contact with Matthew McConaughey. It's a performance of his, especially this. Contact not as much, although Contact was an excellent performance by him, but here he is clearly the star of this movie, whereas Contact, it all kind of revolved around Jodie Foster and Tom Skerritt. Tom Skerritt's in it, and if you're an 80s guy, you know of Tom Skerritt. He was all over the place in the 80s. But going back to U-571, one of the best performances I've ever seen by Matthew McConaughey on so many levels, and it's the subtleties, the things he does with his face. On top of that, he had a lot of help with the incredible writing for this movie and the outstanding dialogue that was hidden within the script. This is just a movie that if my wife goes to bed early and I'm tired and I'm sitting up at night and I want to watch a movie, I will watch this. Even though I'm watching it for the 30th time, it's just so amazing. And a lot of people don't like watching movies more than once, but I've seen Interstellar probably 25 times and other movies, Inception, a bunch of times, and goodness knows I've seen Predator probably 50 times. This is a movie that I can watch over and over again because the sequence of events is very pleasing to follow. You're never really left behind, and you're only left guessing for 20 minutes at the most, and then things begin to kind of define themselves and formulate, and then you're on to the next thing. And you actually watch Matthew McConaughey's character change throughout the movie, where he was kind of like, hey, I'm the fat boy XO and all the guys like me, to I don't care if you're gonna die doing this, go do it, because if you don't do it, the whole crew is gonna die. And it kind of reflects a little bit to what Bill Paxton said in that conversation about why he didn't recommend him to be a seaboat captain. So that's all. That is it for this episode of B Sharp and C. I think that you have to go watch this movie on your own and make your own determination. And if you have seen the movie and you have comments about it and you think that maybe I'm off in something, or maybe you want to add something to what I was saying, put it in the comments below. I always really get good comments on these videos that I make. I used to get a lot of real hateful comments. Lately, it's actually been pretty positive and respectful, and I love that. I love when someone disagrees with me, but they do it in a respectful way. I think that that is important. Let me know your thoughts on this movie if you have seen it. If you haven't seen it, see it. Go see it. I don't know where it is now, like where you can stream it, because you don't go to Blockbuster anymore. I kind of miss going to Blockbuster, walking around and just talking about movies and bouncing ideas off of other people who are also in Blockbuster. I kind of miss that, but anyways, go rent U-571 and let me know what you think of the movie. Anyways, that's all I have time for. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. This is Artie Astor from B Sharp and C saying, keep it groovy.